Is this visit going to help Starmer or is it going to make things worse?
It's so embarrassing that we have to have, like, the President of the United States have so much pity and feel so sorry for this poor, sort of hapless, lost technocrat. They know full well that all these awful gimmicks they are conning the British people with will never, ever work. We are being gaslit.
Hello, I'm JJ Anisiobi and welcome to the Daily Expresso. Today I'm joined by fan favourite Belinda DeLucy. Belinda, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Quick question. Are you subscribed to this channel so you can keep up to date with all the great content that the Express puts out?
Of course I am. Straight away I was.
Fantastic. And so should you be. Do it right now. It takes a second. There you go. Click it. All right, let's get started. Donald Trump is back in the UK for his second presidential visit of our wonderful country, and it's good to have him back. The President and First Lady Melania touch down at about 9 p.m. tonight. Then tomorrow they meet Starmer, who needs every bit of support he can get after one of the worst 2 weeks a Prime Minister has had in living memory. Well, it might be our Prime Minister's lucky day. As rumour has it, Trump is expected to go easy on Starmer because he understands that the Prime Minister is on the ropes. White House insiders have also said Trump has an acute antennae for allies in trouble and basically doesn't want to kick a man when he's down. Ouch. It's kind of good news, I guess, for Starmer that Trump's taking this stance, but it also makes me feel really sorry for Starmer that even Donald Trump, who is not a man who pulls his punches, even Trump is saying, no, I better leave this guy alone.
It's so embarrassing that we have to have, like, the President of the United States have so much pity and feel so sorry for this poor, sort of hapless, lost technocrat that's, you know, just a complete string of failures, that he has to sort of, find him a safe space and not trigger him. And oh my God, what have we come to? But it's very exciting Trump's coming. What a time, though. I bet Keir's pleased about the distraction. But for most of us, it's like Father Christmas arriving. It's so exciting. I've always wanted that moment. I don't know if you remember Love Actually, where Hugh Grant takes to task the United States president. I want the roles reversed with Donald there, just completely tearing Keir apart. But sadly, I doubt that's going to happen. I think this poor broken butterfly of prime minister we have is going to get a soft treatment from Trump. Annoyingly.
Yesterday, our guest was columnist Esther Kraku. She doesn't think that the special relationship is even a big deal anymore. But I think we need to cling on to not just to Trump, but to America full stop.
Oh, I do, massively. And in fact, it doesn't matter who the president is. The UK and the US share the most intense secretive intelligence. Our special forces work together on a level that, a lot of the public don't realise. We are absolutely entwined on intelligence and security with America and history's sake as well. We were once all one people and until they broke away from us. And I'm quite happy to be a colony of theirs, by the way, for the next few years of Trump's presidency. But it's refreshing because when Biden, the sort of I'm Irish, down with the UK president was in power, there was a feeling of sort of deep regret and sadness that the world's most powerful man just did not like our country and had this kind of grievance against us. His mother even, disliked the royals so much that when she went to a hotel, she had to ask with the reception which bedroom the Queen had been in because she didn't want to go anywhere near it. It was that kind of sort of force behind that administration. But with Trump, my God, he loves our country. He has more love and patriotism for the UK in his little finger than the whole of Westminster put together.
What do you think Trump's going to want to speak about to Starmer?
I think obviously he'll talk about Ukraine, talk about investment. I mean, we did have Google announce that they're investing £5 billion into the UK just in the couple of days leading up to this visit. I think that's quite exciting. Tariffs, of course, we've been treated extremely favourably by Trump over tariffs compared to our, many other countries. That's down to Brexit as well. And I think there'll be a lot of talk on that. I mean, I hope Trump privately talks to him about the erosion of free speech and freedom of the British people and reminds him that Westminster's there to work for our interests, not anyone else's. And, of course, about our borders. I mean, the White House on the website said that Trump has reduced illegal immigration into the United States by 95%. And what's that been in a few months? So maybe he can give Keir a little bit of advice there. But he won't do it in public, sadly.
Pete Mandelson, I know we keep on mentioning his name, but he is looming large still over Starmer. Is this visit going to help Starmer or is it going to make things worse? Is Trump, if I was Trump, and I'm a petty man, I was saying to Starmer, I didn't want that guy. I told you I didn't want him from the beginning and you put him in anyway. You were wrong. I was right. What do you think Trump's going to do?
I don't think, again, he'll do anything publicly, but it feels like, I would say we're lions led by donkeys, but that's an insult to donkeys at the moment. But I think, Trump's the warrior and Keir's the wimp over this. Why on earth would he hire Peter Mandelson, who has a history of dodgy sleaze? I mean, this is, he's called the Prince of Darkness for a reason. I would call him Rasputin in a suit, dripping, just dripping with dodginess. He has fallen on his sword many times in the past, Peter Mandelson, with dodgy dealings. 2001, of course, was the incident with the Indian billionaire who donated £1 million to one of Peter Mandelson's funds, and he was having difficulty getting a passport, and a couple of days later after the donation, Peter Mandelson managed to have a word with the Home Office and got him a passport. It's that kind of sleaze that is attached to Peter Mandelson. And what I think the British public can't abide is the deceit of Keir over this situation. The idea that a man who has MI6 and MI5 at his fingertips, the intelligence of the world right there, wouldn't know about the depths of intimacy between Peter Mandelson and Epstein. That is just for the birds. It's so unbelievable. I think he would have been fully aware, and I watched the Prime Minister's questions time when he was asked about it, and he looked like a rabbit caught in the headlights and just reconfirmed his full faith behind Peter Mandelson, having known about how dodgy the emails were beforehand. It's unbelievable to think he can't have. He's the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He would have been briefed. And so is there a question of him lying to Parliament? And by his standards, because of course he accused Boris of that and demanded his resignation, by his standards, he should resign on that very deceit that was portrayed in Parliament this week.
Yeah. But with the Epstein and Mandelson, is there an element of Trump openly saying he's going to go easy on Starmer? Is that because Trump is implicated a little bit and associated quite a lot with Epstein?
Who knows? I mean, this is the big story. Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, is supposed to have a little bit of info on everyone involved. Epstein did attract all the rich, the powerful, rumours of Bill Clinton and lots of people on both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, being involved with this man. But I think Trump will just completely ignore it and cut it out because, of course, he doesn't want the spotlight on him over in the States, over Epstein either. But I think Peter Mandelson was I think, by far the worst culprit in appeasing and simping up toEpstein after he was convicted. Yeah. Most people had the sense to run a million miles, and Peter was like, "I'll be your best friend forever. I love you. Come and be my buddy." And that kind of thing reeks of poor judgment, but even more so, Keir's judgment on hiring him in the first place. Why didn't he just stick with the previous ambassador? She was doing a good job. Yeah. They moved mountains to get Peter in. Why? Because he was some Labour best buddy from years ago. This just reeks of the same kind of freebies crisis that Keir was in, within weeks of getting into government, totally disconnected and thinks no rules apply to him.
Yeah. Well, let's stick with Trump. Just like the last presidential visit 6 years ago, this trip will be marred by several notable organised protests against Mr. President. Anti-Trump protesters, or as I call them, snowflakes with far too much time on their hands, will gather around Windsor Castle from 5:30 p.m. this evening. But Trump won't see them in real life because he won't even be in Windsor Castle tonight. Idiots. Meanwhile, UK collective Everyone Hates Elon has made a 400 square metre version of the photo of Trump with Epstein and set it down outside Windsor Castle. The Stop Trump coalition are then planning a mass demonstration on Wednesday. They have claimed Trump is opening the door to global fascism and said his visit would drag Britain further into the abyss. I can't think of the right words to say about these lot without getting myself into trouble. I think they're losers. I think they're loonies. I think they've got far too much time on their hands. And they are very, very entitled people.
Yeah, these mobs are the same lot who do the Extinction Rebellion marches, the Stop Brexit marches, the Palestine marches. It's the same group of people who clearly have no intention of ever working a day in their life. I don't know who they're organised by. I don't know who they're funded, but they all seem to be carrying the same placards time and time again, vastly different from the incredible, wonderful protests we saw in London on Saturday, where it was just, a mixed match of every kind of salt the earth Brit you could imagine with their homemade placards just preaching love and unity. These are just instigators and haters, and they think they're making an impact. They're not. We're bored of it. You can call us fascist, far right. You've hollowed out the words. It means nothing to us. They don't understand that those tools they used to try and crush and cancel people in the past, they're done for. I get called fascist, Nazi all the time. It's water off a duck's back. It doesn't work. They're going to fail and embarrass themselves. And after the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk, I do think we need to keep an eye on the intolerant, aggressive left, who seem to be far more of a threat to this country and public safety than any of my, crew on the right. So I think Trump will just ignore it.
Yeah, he's not going to take this personally, is he? He's not going to care one bit.
No, he wants the photo op selfie with King Charles, with Prince William. That's what he's after. It's the pomp, the ceremony that only the UK can deliver. And again, Labour are riding off the coattails of the very patriotic people they smear with far right by using everything wonderful about the country and that people love to their own benefits and to distract, obviously, everyone from the Peter Mandelson case.
Yeah, this is actually genuinely a historic Trump coming here, because normally a second-term president gets invited for a lunch or tea with the king, not a whole second state visit. This is a huge, big deal.
It's massive, and I think it is playing to Trump's ego a little bit, because of course he can kind of go around saying, "Well, I got 2 state visits," but it is worthy. He is worthy of it. This man has turned America around, brought manufacturing back to the land, which is what the UK needs to do desperately. Our country's been stripped of manufacturing, stripped of training domestic workforce, all outsourcing it to foreign labour and foreign countries, hollowing out our country. The same happened in America under Biden. So I think he is absolutely worthy of it. I hope he gets a third one. I'm very happy for it just to happen every single year, to keep Westminster, in its place a bit. But I think it's a glorious occasion, but we mustn't get distracted from the absolute turmoil and terrible crisis that's hitting the Labour Party at the moment, because it's our home that they're destroying. This is very personal to us. I think we're all grieving a little bit about the state of our country.
Do you think these protesters are sullying the state a little? And it's selective outrage, because when the Chinese President Xi Jinping came over, I don't recall there being huge thousands of people on the streets and balloons of him flying through the air, the pig, whatever. But Trump is fashionable to dislike.
I had this issue when Trump was accused of misogyny back in 2016 when he won the first election. He said, women, let me grab them by the Lady Garden, can I say? And, the kind of crazy lefties went wild for this. He's misogynistic. He's a woman hater. And that very same movement is the movement that completely ignored the horrific mass rape of white working class girls in this country by majority Pakistani child rape gangs. Not a march for them, not a word for them. It was all about, Trump has said this, so, women's rights. I was on the feminist committee in the EU Parliament, and I brought this up in 2019, the selective outrage of feminists on the left. They prefer a little small group of people who can be the only perpetrators of evil deeds against women, and everyone else, it's open season on them. So they protect their minority victim groups on their woke hierarchy of any kind of criticism, which is why the UK is in such a state. It is a horrible 2-tier feeling with the left. And Trump gets it massively. And yet he was the one that announced within hours of him becoming president that he was going to make sure women's sports were kept to female only. That's an incredible thing for women's rights. The left wouldn't do that, if someone offered them £1 billion.
Look, as much as I have disdain for these snowflakes, and trust me, they disgust me.
Yeah.
They really disgust me. But as a Brit, I have to support their right to protest, don't I?
Absolutely. I'm all for protest. I'm all for free speech that doesn't directly incite violence. But the placards at these protests, as I said, that ranging from whether it's Extinction Rebellion to EU to Palestine, are so much more violent in their rhetoric. They don't want to hurt you because they think you're a Nazi. They want to call you a Nazi so they can hurt you. And that is that kind of rhetoric at these protests. I absolutely support their right to do it, as long as it's legal, and legal free speech is absolutely fine. It's just boring and people are done with it, and they're not going to change a thing.
Okay. Now, in another embarrassment to Starmer, the first migrant flight under the one-in, one-out scheme was cancelled at the very last minute because of legal threats. One migrant was set to be flown from Heathrow to Paris on Air France passenger flight on Monday, but the flight was postponed amid protests by charities and threats of legal action. British and French charities have launched a campaign to bombard Air France with phone calls, emails and social media messages urging them not to agree to collaborate with the Interior Ministry and not to agree to deport these people on these flights. The Home Office has to give generous time extensions to the migrants to take legal advice on challenging their deportation as a result of a ruling against the Tory government's thwarted Rwanda deportation scheme. Belinda, surely this is what we all expected to happen. The soft lefties, and I say soft lefties, it's the extreme lefties with more money than sense. They were always going to get involved and try and stop this from happening.
So the Rwanda plan and this ridiculous one-in, one-out plan are not worth the paper they're written on, and Westminster knows it. They know full well that all these awful gimmicks they are conning the British people with will never, ever work. And we are being gaslit. The Rwanda plan, the Tories hailed it. No one read the small print that in the deal, the UK had to accept an unspecified number of of refugees from Rwanda in return. These things are never noted. They know full well the human rights lawyers will stop every single flight. And the thing about Keir Starmer that really grates me, he was part of the lawfare that elevated courts and judges above elected politicians to make decisions for this country. He was part of it. So he wrote the rules. And so he knew exactly full well that this ridiculous policy would never, ever work. It's like an overflowing bath and he wants to remove a drip from it and replace it with another drip. In fact, it's worse than that because we're not even removing a drip. I think France is sending their plane load of their refugees they want to deposit into our country on Saturday, and we won't have even sent one. There is no point in any kind of policy without removing ourselves from the horrific, dangerous international law that Westminster has absolutely submitted to. This is dangerous, outdated international law. The European Convention of Human Rights and the Refugee Convention are fundamentally responsible for the erosion of the nation state and people's safety, but they are far more interested in Westminster with international applause. They've forgotten the British people. They don't care about impressing them, taking care of them. All they care about is the Davos globalist blood running through their veins and the champagne receptions that they get all around the world at all these fancy Foreign Office dues. They simply have let the British people go, and they no longer work for us. And no Stop the Boats policy has a chance of ever deporting more than 5 or 6 people a week if we do not leave these awful treaties that are literally unmaking England.
Well, Denmark, Italy, and I believe 7 other countries signed a letter calling out the ECHR and saying it's not tenable, and they should be able to process refugees and asylum seekers in other countries rather than having them come to Europe first. Why aren't Labour doing the same thing? Why aren't Labour saying, okay, yeah, if you want to claim asylum, that's fine, but we're going to process you in France?
Because Labour is as messed up as the Tory party. It's almost 2 parties within a party. And the hard left in the Labour Party will rebel against anything like that because they want the UK to become just a cesspit of disunited poor nations that have nothing in common with each other, because then everyone will end up working for the state or get dependent on the state, and that's socialism. And so they're very keen on our borders being remained open. But I would say this, and I think a lot of British people are feeling this. One of the reasons why the UK is such an incredible, successful country is because when we were invaded, when we were colonised, when we had famine, despair, civil war, when we were bombed, the British people stayed. They sacrificed, they rebuilt, they stayed every single time throughout the last 2,000 years of our history. And I beg, these developing countries are never going to have the chance to develop if every single time there is poor or degrading treatment or low economic status for the people around the world, they think they can just jump ship onto someone else's country. We need to encourage and provide help and resources to help them build their own country so they can make it great. We've got to stop resettling people from foreign continents into a tiny country like England, and we need to just reset the asylum system so we invest in these UN camps that I've talked about nearer their conflicts, so we end up saving lives for less money. Labour don't want that. They want the UK to become a socialist state, and this is one way of doing it. The Tories are no better because they want to please everyone on the international stage. That's why I'm so desperate for reform, because they're the only party that have committed to leaving the ECHR and stopping this mad invasion of our country.
Well, let's talk about reform, because yesterday, Tory boy Danny Kruger became the first sitting Conservative MP to defect to Reform UK. Kruger has been an MP since 2019 and sat on Tory leader Kemi Badenoch's team as Shadow Work and Pensions Minister. The Conservatives are over, he told a press conference sitting alongside Nigel Farage. Kruger said he had been honoured to be asked to help Reform prepare for government and said he hoped that Farage would be the next Prime Minister. To make matters worse for the Tories, earlier today, former Conservative Health Minister Maria Caulfield, who now works full-time in the NHS, also defected to Reform. These are pretty big coups. This is... Danny Kruger may not be known to the general public that well, but to people in politics, he's a respectable name.
Very, very formidable man. I've followed him for years, actually, and I'm, of course, very suspicious of any movement from the Tory party over to Reform. So we have to set the bar. Reform does have to set it so high that only the best of the best with the good intentions come across. And Danny has years and years of experience. He is an intellectual heavyweight. I urge any of your listeners to watch his incredible speech in Parliament about the basis of England in Christianity and how that shaped our laws and democracy. It's so moving. I always shed a little tear when I watch the speech. Incredibly authentic and well-respected man. And it is a risk to him. It's not him just being opportunist and jumping ship. East Wiltshire is a very safe seat for the Tories. I think Reform came in third or fourth in the last election there. So it is a risk for him. But I respect the courage of the people who take that risk because they're so determined to change, have seismic change in this country. And you will not get it. The Conservative Party is so broken and so toxic that it's like kind of being around the plague or being around something that if you touch, you're just going to get ill. I mean, that's how bad it is. And I was Tory member for 20 years, and I cut up my membership card as soon as they started rebelling against Brexit. But they're not the same party. It's full of yellow Tories, full of the Liberals. And it was interesting today because Miriam Cates, who's a former Tory MP, was saying how hard it was in the Tory party to get them to suspend even tiny elements of the ECHR to help deport people. The Tory party were not having it because it is more of a Lib Dem party than anything else. So actually the original Conservatives with a small c, family, country and community, they should be welcome in Reform. Not so much, the yellow belly ones at all. Keep clear.
Is it fair on Kruger's constituents? They voted for a Tory. Whether they liked him or not, they voted Tory. And now they've got someone from Reform leading them instead.
It's an interesting point, and I think Danny answers it very well. He says he remains that same exact person they voted in, and he'll fight for the same exact things. He's a small c Conservative and shares all the values that Reform has now and sees Conservative Party having left him. Not the other way round. I think many Conservative voters feel like that. And I also think it's very expensive holding by-elections. Do we really want to be spending thousands, of British taxpayers' money on that rather than letting him seamlessly pass into a party that's very similar? Different if it was a Labour coming to the Tories.
Why is that different?
Well, I think if you are an opposition party, if you are strategically, politically, emotionally, completely opposite to the party you're crossing, then I do think that's good for a by-election. But I don't think it's the case with Danny, and I think a seamless move over to Reform without any change into how he's behaving as an MP to his constituents, I think is fair and just.
He once said that if Reform got into government, they would spend like drunken soldiers.
No, I saw that.
What have you guys done that's changed his mind?
Well, I think, listen, I remember him saying that, thinking, what's wrong with being a sailor? No, I think at the time, I think Nigel had just said he was going to scrap the two-child benefit cap, which I think we should keep it. But I think Danny has said that Nigel has since then re-clarified Reform's position on that, which Danny has now accepted won't make them, resemble drunken sailors. And actually, the skill and talent in Reform at the moment for economic policy is incredible. It puts the Labour and Tories to absolute shame, how we can save money, how we can best spend it on the British people and not abroad. And I think Danny recognises that and has come to see the light.
So he's now heading up this special unit. That sounds so TV, special forces unit, to teach everyone how to govern. So Reform, you guys actually, you do believe you are going to become the next government?
I think the preparation now is absolutely in faith that we can earn the votes, because nothing is a given. And I don't think Reform at all are just presuming that the polling will convert into votes. There's a lot of work to be done to earn people's votes, because trust has been so utterly damaged by the last two parties. And I think with Nigel, he is so ministerial. He's very much that strong leader that people are looking to replace the cabal we've had in Westminster with all the treachery and knavery and abuse towards the British public from Westminster. They see in Reform a very sensible, laid out party with incredible skill and talent, and we're taking it seriously. And the great thing about Reform is we won't get scared about making queasy decisions. We have the courage to be disliked on the international stage in a way that protects the British people, and you can't have that with any of the legacy parties. None of them at the moment put British interests first, and people, I think, are going to swarm to Reform nearer the election. Maybe we'll have it sooner. I mean, Nigel did say at the Reform conference he could see it happening in 2027, and the way things are going in Parliament, you can imagine, maybe it's sooner than we think.
But if I was advising Starmer or advising Ed Davey or even the Green Party, I'd be saying to them, you've got to say to everyone, Reform are just turning into the Tory party. They're taking in all the losers from the Tory party who don't want to stay on the sinking ship, and they're just Tories 2.0.
I think that will definitely come out. But if that's all they've got, then good luck to them. I would hate to be associated with being a Tory.
You've got a few of them in there now.
But the ones that are in, like Dame Andrea Jenkins, Danny Kruger, there are a handful, believe it or not, of incredibly good, courageous Conservative MPs that have been horrified about what their party has done to this country and have been. Danny Kruger, was fighting against all the illegal immigration, giveaway, everything. His voting record is absolutely fantastic in terms of moving to Reform. And I think, listen, Tory ship is sinking. There's only going to be a couple of lifeboats out. We are just talking, I think, about a handful, and from other parties as well. Because if you really love your country, I don't see how people can vote for parties that are intent on destroying it.
So who's next? Who's going to be the next one to quit?
So tough. I don't know, because people were talking about Priti Patel this morning. But of course, Priti Patel defended the Boris wave, defended the Tory immigration. So
did Nadine Dorries.
Wave. Yes, I know, but
she's in love with Boris Johnson, basically.
And I did make that clear last week that I have concerns about that. But remember, Nadine only became a member. It's not a Danny Kruger defection or anything like that. So we have to be really careful. Anyone who defended that level of immigration and it made an excuse for it, or was against leaving the ECHR, I don't think they should be welcome in the party. But people like Nick Timothy, who's, again, not a well-known name, but I would urge anyone to look him up on social media. His incredible speeches at the moment against the sort of Islamist simping blasphemy law that Labour are trying to push through. Absolutely incredible, very courageous speeches. That's someone I would consider. But really, it's not up to me. It's up to Nigel, Zia and the gang. And I know they will choose very, very carefully. The bar is very, very high to get into Reform.
Let's play a little game that I call Reform or Reject.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm going to say a name, and you're going to say Reform or Reject.
Oh, God,
okay? No pressure.
Okay.
Big prizes at stake here.
Yeah.
First name, Robert Jenrick.
This is very tricky. I would have said reform had he come over sooner, but the fact that he's still tying his chain to the sinking ship and hasn't moved earlier, and that he was, did completely change his whole political view overnight and suddenly became a right winger. I'm not so sure, so I would reject.
Perfect. Nigel Farage calls him Robert's generic, so
Yes.
I think that's the right answer. Number 2, Suella Braverman.
I have a soft spot for Suella.
So you're going to say reform?
I would say reform for Suella, because she really put her neck on the line a lot, speaking out against the Conservative Party while she was still there, and
she was pretty incompetent as well.
But this absolutely. Can I have a consider button?
No. Name number 3, Nadim Zahawi.
No, I don't think so.
So reject?
No, reject, yeah.
Wow, but he's got so much experience.
But we need conviction and passion and loyalty and devotion to the people of this country, JJ. We need to have seen that over decades, not a quick turnaround because the Tory party's sinking. And so I'm afraid just because he's got enough experience doesn't cut the mustard for me.
Okay, last one. Liz Truss, reform or reject?
I actually like Liz, but I would reject because as much as I think her budget held a lot of weight and positivity, it was delivered in such a terrible way, and with panic, I'm not sure we need that in reform.
Belinda, I like your answers because you're a woman of principle and you rejected most of those names. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, good for you. For all the topics we've covered today, make sure you head to express.co.uk to read the full articles. The caffeine has worn off. That is all we have time for. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Belinda DeLucy.
Pleasure.
And join us again tomorrow. Bye-bye.